Iran has thrown open the doors to nuclear talks with the United States, but has demanded security guarantees. Tehran says only if it gets clear assurances that there will be no more attacks on its territory, it will go ahead with the talks. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, speaking to diplomats in Tehran, said Iran has always been open to talks and will remain so, but only if the process doesn't turn into a prelude of war. He said last month's attack on its nuclear sites on June 22nd has made a diplomatic resolution far more difficult.
We have always been ready for talks over our nuclear program and will be ready for them in future. But naturally, we must be assured that if negotiations are restarted, they will not result in war by the US or other countries.
Speaking on Iran's cooperation with the United Nations nuclear watchdog, Araghchi said Tehran's cooperation with the IAEA has not stopped but will take on a new form after the Islamic Republic formally ended cooperation with the United Nations watchdog in early July.
Our cooperation with the IAEA has not stopped. Of course, it will take on a new form, which is entirely natural given the current realities and developments.
The minister added that requests to inspect nuclear sites will be reviewed on a case-by-case basis, taking into account safety and security issues.
All of our cooperations with the agency from now on will be managed through the Supreme National Security Council. Demands of the IAEA for continuation of its monitoring, for continuation of cooperation with Iran will be reviewed by the Supreme National Security Council case by case and should be done based on Iran's security concerns.
Iran has blamed the IAEA in part for the June attacks on its nuclear facilities, which Israel says it launched to prevent Iran from developing a nuclear weapon, an ambition Tehran has repeatedly denied. Araghchi further warned of a growing threat of radioactive proliferation and said unexploded ammunition from past conflicts still poses a major risk. The IAEA reports say Iran ended its organized weapons program in 2003. Tehran has since enriched uranium to 60%, just shy of the 90% required for a nuclear bomb. President Trump has repeatedly said that uranium enrichment on Iranian soil will not be allowed and warned that a snapback of sanctions could end Europe's role in the Iran nuclear file altogether. Mr. Youssef Jalali is a journalist. He is now joining us live from Tehran. Mr. Jalali, good to see you and thank you very much for making time for us. You have an ear on what the government in Tehran says. What could have made them come up with conditions, even going further, and hinging the talks on security guarantees?
Well, of course, it's not just security guarantees, but also safety risks. In the beginning, Iran was speaking about the security guarantees and the security threats associated with the IAEA inspection of its nuclear sites. The Iranian parliament, we all remember that the Iranian parliament recently passed this bill to bar any inspections by the IAEA. They're saying that they're blaming the recent Israeli and the U.S. airstrikes against its key nuclear sites on the intelligence leaks facilitated by the IAEA as a result of the oversights by those inspectors. So now they're mentioning the safety issues. And by the safety risks, they're pointing to radiation exposure and, of course, leftover munitions from the recent airstrikes targeting Iran's nuclear facilities. So this seems like a standoff because even the safety issues in those sites need to be inspected, need to be analyzed and assessed by the IAEA itself. So this very much seems like a stalemate right now between Iran and the IAEA. But that means that Iran is trying to reopen to diplomacy, perhaps with the West and with the United States. At the same time, he wants to say that while it is open to any path towards diplomacy. It wants to set any diplomatic engagement on its own terms. So the country wants to say that we're open to talks with the IAEA, with the United States over its nuclear program, but it wants to have and maintain a new leverage that did not exist in the past. When in the past talks, Iran did not have this safety and security risks, but now it has this on the table too. So this also needs to be settled during any potential future talks with the United States.
Mr. Jalali, let me ask you this then. Iran also says it will work with the IAEA, but inspections may be risky. How so?
Well, of course, as I mentioned, any inspections on the IAEA, on the part of the IAEA, needs them to be present on those 3 major nuclear sites. Iran already said that those sites have been seriously damaged. So by seriously, it did not elaborate on how serious that damage was. But of course, Iran is citing safety risks associated with any presence on the part of the IAEA inspectors on its nuclear sites. And by safety, it is actually referring to the radiation exposure and, of course, the leftover munitions from the past strikes by the United States and by the Israelis targeting its key nuclear sites. So Iran is trying to say that it is actually open, it is willing to re-engage with the West. It wants to avert and avoid any further sanctions, perhaps any harsh moves on the part of the West, because the West is now asking Iran to maintain transparency with regards to its nuclear program. So the country wants to say, yes, we are open to those talks, we are open to any inspection, but that inspection is associated with some risks. First and foremost is the intelligence risks and the security risks associated with the IAEA getting its hands on Iran's key and sensitive intelligence. So the country wants to make sure that any intelligence shared with the IAEA inspectors would not fall into the hands of the Israelis, as that was the main drive behind the Iranian parliament passing that bill requiring the Iranian government to, of course, bar the IAEA inspectors, because the Islamic Republic finds the IAEA, the United Nations nuclear watchdog, complicit in the Israeli sabotage attacks against its nuclear facilities, as well as the assassination of its nuclear scientists.
Mr. Youssef Jalali, good to see you. Thank you very much for talking to us today. We'll have to leave it there.
Sure.